Public Safety Drone Review. We are happy that you are all here. We're just going to give it one more minute to let people come into the room. Tim and I were talking about the weather, of course, like all over this country. It's crazy. Gemma, I don't know what it's like there. In Boston, we're in like going into week 3 where it has not broken freezing at all. So it starts out like 1 or 2 degrees Fahrenheit and maybe gets up to 19, 20 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's been a
I
little
mean,
chilly.
I don't know Fahrenheit. Can't lie, but how
So
very
we
British
haven't
of you
gotten to
talking about
zero
the weather.
anytime in 3 weeks. We've not reached zero.
It's like minus 30
Yeah,
Celsius.
yeah, it's crazy, crazy.
What's
Wow.
freezing in Celsius?
Zero.
32. Yeah,
Zero.
so
Oh,
zero
zero. Okay.
is freezing. Yeah,
Of course, the U.S. had to go
Yeah.
with a different system because zero
of
makes sense,
course.
right?
Yeah,
Freezing is zero, and then
exactly.
everything else is negative and above. Yeah.
Exactly. And Charles, I've been going back and forth with Chuck Moran, and he's calling it snowcrete. He
Yeah,
said
he's
you
calling
guys
it
got
because I
snow
told
and
him
then
to
it
call it that.
melts and then it
So he's acting like
It's-
he's got this real level of importance and intelligence and everything, and he's just gotten it from me. So
yeah, okay.
it is. It's like 5 inches of snow, 3 inches of sleet, and then freezing into a package. In fact, my grandson and I yesterday were making snowcrete bricks
All
to make
right.
us to make a
Igloo.
snow fort for animals.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, we're going to get started. Thanks everybody for being here for this episode of the Public Safety Drone Review. I'm Miriam McNabb, editor at Drone Life. With me, as always, my co-host, um, Charles Werner, Chief of Drone Responders, Tim Martin, Director of UAS Training at the Regional Training Institute, and our guest today, we are really honored to have Gemma Alcock of Skybound Tech. That's a teaser because what you may know her under the name Skybound Rescuer, but there has been a transition as their functionality has changed. So we will talk to her about that later. Gemma, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it. I know it's late where you are. That's about the time when I'm like in my PJs watching TV. So thank
Where
you very
where is
much for
she,
joining us
Miriam?
here.
Where is she?
Where are you? You're in the UK, right? Well, I don't know. She could be
Yeah.
anywhere. She travels everywhere still.
Well, I am
Okay.
in pajamas underneath the camera,
All right.
so
Great. Okay. We're going to get started as we always do. Just a couple of housekeeping things. If you do have to step out in the middle or you want to share this later on, we will put the recording up on the Drone Life TV YouTube station. So you can find this and past episodes up there. Additionally, um, Charles is walking away from us now, just when I wanted him to say something. But I wanted Charles to get the chance to announce the March National Public Safety Conference, which is happening in Busch Gardens. Yes?
Yes, March 10th and 11th, and
Okay.
Gemma will be joining us with some members of her team as well to give to serve on the DFR panel to talk about similar type of activities that she's been doing in the UK. So yes, March 10th and 11th, Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, Virginia. Look, if you haven't ever been to Williamsburg, Virginia, you should come because it's the historic triangle of Williamsburg, Yorktown, and Jamestown, where Yorktown is particularly important because that's where the British surrendered to the American colonies, so that we actually got our independence from that tyrant over there in England. Oh, sorry, Jim, I didn't say anything bad about you.
and you're welcome.
Yes, we appreciate all the assistance that you all gave. So it's going to be exciting. We're going to have 2 days. First day is going to be focused on enabling US with the public safety US programs, and the second day is going to be on counter UAS detection and counter UAS mitigation. We
Okay.
have some exciting speakers. We've got FAA administrator is invited and is looking at his schedule, and Stephen Willoughby from DHS, who's now taken over the new UAS and counter UAS office, is looking to be the keynote for the second day. And there's a lot more, so go to the website, droneresponders.org, go to events, and NACON is the one you want to look at. And we have a registration and a hotel block there as well.
Great. Great. All right, so please, as we go on, join the conversation, join the chat, put questions in the Q&A. Someone comments that this always conflicts with Verticon. Sorry about that. Talk to Charles. Oh, he's that way on my screen. But we will continue to bring you into the conversation. Really appreciate your participation.
We've
All
been
right,
doing this for 5 years, just to say.
yes.
I don't think Verticon's been doing this for 5 years. And
Yeah, they need to deconflict with you. That's it. All right. So let's get started talking about some of the current news stories from this last month. And it's really not much going on in the sense of sort of smaller news, but a lot going on in the sense of kind of larger news. So let's talk about that. Last month, of course, we spent almost the entire time talking about the ban on Chinese drones, all foreign drones, not just Chinese drones, the FCC move. So actually, I'm going to start at the end first, and we'll just get this one out of the way. Actually, on the day that we had the last PSDR, the FCC did announce a change where they will exempt blue UAS for a year until 2027. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts over whether that actually changes anything or makes things easier for anybody. I'm not sure that it materially changes the situation right now because what's for sale is still for sale and available. So
yeah, so technically blue drones, public safety doesn't buy blue drones. Blue drones are for the military. Blue drones don't have remote ID, which we can't use because we have to have remote ID by law. I think by 2027, I don't know what that means exactly. I think the idea is they want everybody moving the supply chain to the United States, that manufacturing is taking place here. I think that's the drive. My guess is that 2027 date will change. It will probably be extended out, but I think the idea now is to put forward an idea or a direction where they want to go and start pushing people in that direction.
Okay. All right. So if Charles, could you put up the document that has all of these stories? That document, that's okay. That document will also have link to the original FCC announcement with the covered drone explanation and the update that talks about the addition of the exemption of blue UAS.
Can I make one comment on that too?
Of course.
It's a perfect example of how the FCC has demonstrated that they have the capability of walking back whatever they want to walk back. So they're basically writing the book as we go, and this answers a lot of the questions a lot of people had about foreign drones like Parrot, other potential allied nation drones that come about that are certified blue, because it didn't say that it's what's ever currently on the list. It says any drone on the blue list. So technically, we could see more drones added to that list before the end of the year and possibly have more choices.
Oh dear.
Wow. Hold on a second.
Okay, I muted him.
Thought somebody put acid in my coffee or something. I was like tripping out there.
Okay.
Gemma, I'm just curious. Is there, since we're on the subject of Chinese drone bans, is there any talk over there of this happening in the UK?
No, thankfully. I mean, there are, in terms of the MOD, so the military and military sites, that you can't use DJI there, and similar. But public safety, public sector, it hasn't. And yeah, of course, there's always talks, especially like we quite often watch America and adopt what Americans are doing. I'm fingers crossed on this occasion that we don't. But I don't think we're free from that risk. But at the moment, there's been no significant movement in that direction, fortunately.
So I wanted to address something that came up in the chat, which is what's the real problem with parts? And it's interesting, Tim and I have discussed this before, but the FCC actually said something different. So when we heard other explanations of policy moves towards banning foreign drones, they would use words like security risk and things like that. So they were really talking about it in terms of a security issue. And the FCC, in their explanation, made it clear that their view is that it's a supply chain issue, that the risk is that it isn't made in the United States. That's the risk. So if we were in a conflict and we were unable to get those parts, it risks the supply chain. So that is the explanation that the FCC gave. I'm not saying that's the fact. I'm saying that's the explanation that was given, is that it's supply chain. It's the fact that it isn't manufactured here. So
Yeah, I think that's the FCC doesn't govern parts, right? There's no radio, other than the actual radio itself, but the parts and the big picture in I think this administration is they want US independence.
yeah,
If we keep relying on Chinese parts for US drone manufacturers, we'll never get to that point of independence.
yeah. So they just want the supply chain security. So okay.
So let me add a little bit to that. My camera's not working, so I don't know why that happened. I switched over to computers, so I'm in my right place now. I talked to Adam Chan, the counsel for the FCC commissioner, Brandon Carr, on Christmas Eve and said, "Thank you so much for this wonderful Christmas present that you gave us." But I had questions, and my questions were, where does this come from? And he said, well, first, let me just clarify that this change in what happened did not come from the FCC. A national security group determined that all foreign drones were a national security threat, meaning that it came from above, probably the White House, and that they had no influence on what came out more than what was in the NDAA. Just wanted to put that out there.
Okay. All right. So let's move on from that and get to another kind of big one, which is the FAA put out a broad NOTAM. So of course, everybody is aware that there has been a lot of conflict in the United States around federal customs and border protection activity, starting with incidents in Minneapolis and so forth. So the FAA took the step of issuing a notice to air missions restricting flight over federal assets, including of Customs and Border Protection, Department of Homeland Security assets, including vehicles. So this is a little bit different and probably problematic. I'm going to leave it to the experts to discuss but this is problematic for many reasons. And it says, even as I understand it, it says even for emergency response drones, you need to have coordinated with Department of Homeland Security in advance. And the problem is, of course, you don't necessarily know where their operations are going to take place in advance. And if you are responding to an emergency, you don't know where your operations are going to be taking place in advance because it's an emergency. So what do we think about this? How is this going to play out? And I'm going to kind of leave this to the experts what do you think? Tim, Gemma?
I don't
Any
know.
ideas on this?
It's been never something's never been done before, and the airspace is so complicated. Half the drones up there are not even required to have remote ID or be registered for that matter. So that's going to be hard to trace, and that could be part of the problem. Is they realize that just by remote ID alone, you can't differentiate between police drones and civilian drones just by remote ID alone, unless we get to that point where we can start whitelisting them. But even then, I mean, I guess if you see an M30 or an M300, you know, or higher end drone, you're going to know that's probably law enforcement. But for the most part, you're talking smaller drones that any of the mini series to take, except for the Mini 5, they're not even detectable. So it's going to be interesting. Enforcement's going to be, I don't know, it's going to probably fall on like the FBI to enforce it after the fact. I can't see them enforcing it during.
So that's actually kind of, Ian, who is my son, but writes for Drone Life, said, I'm looking at this, and his analysis was that it's really designed to be able to prosecute people who are doing something that they shouldn't be doing after the fact. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
and
just not sure how this could possibly work. Like, how are police supposed to get
so
permission,
if it's a
coordinate in
plan,
advance?
yeah, if it's a planned event, a planned protest, it's easy for law enforcement to there'll be a mechanism in place for law enforcement to do it. Like let's say it's a federal building downtown LA where that building doesn't move, but that's the site of mass protests. Well, law enforcement's going to be able to get approval to fly to manage the crowd around that building. And it's a 3,000 feet is the radius. But when they start talking about over vehicles, moving vehicles, um, I don't know. That's going to be interesting to enforce that when you have Homeland Security rolling into a neighborhood and unannounced, and all of a sudden everyone has to not fly there. I think it's just going to be. I think law enforcement will get it. They'll figure it out. But the public, you'll have, you know, a small percentage of the public is there for nefarious reasons. The rest of them are just looky-loos, and they're going to find out the hard way, I think.
Right. Or just, hey, I happened to be inspecting that roof next door. How did I
Yeah.
know that, they were gonna roll up right then? I don't know, because it's the unannounced aspect of it that's problematic, right? You don't fly over the president's car when he's traveling.
Yeah.
But you know the route and you know where it's going and you know that well in advance. Gemma, do you have any thoughts on this? How,
Yeah, I
or
mean,
just happy you don't have to be?
yeah, it sounds tricky. No, hopefully it's just a deterrent. As you say, that it's more that if the law enforcement reached out to whoever's in charge of that airspace, that there'll be a deconfliction plan in place, because deconfliction is simple when you look at it top level, and that it just needs separation and communication, which, you know, two responsible agencies working together is pretty simple. So hopefully it's more of a deterrent for the hobbyists and other commercial drone pilots, that it's like, wow, it's so strict that it even applies to law enforcement. That's what I'm hoping, because there's quite a safety risk to not allow law enforcement in such a large area to not fly their drones during
Mhm.
what could be a peak time for them. So yeah,
Great.
hopefully.
All right, we have a comment that says the NOTAM stated the UAS TFR applies to DoD fixed facilities and their mobile assets without clarification. It goes on, but you're absolutely right. Do we expect further clarification? I think usually when things go out in a broad sense like this, in response to current events, we have usually seen more granularity as time goes on, and people have a chance to unpack it, and comments have certainly gone in. The media coalition, everybody has written letters to comment on this, so I do think we will see more granularity and more clarity as time goes on, but right now it sits where it sits.
And it may not be a popular opinion, but I'm actually thankful to see our government starting to take control of critical infrastructures in airspace, because we've never really done it.
Right.
and I think we have to start somewhere. And if they have to put this broad, generalized memo out or rule out and then walk it back and fine tune it, then at least they're trying to do something like Gemma said. It's a deterrent for people to fly their drones responsibly.
Right. Right. Okay, someone asked, how are they going to know? Doubt they will be deploying detection sensors while driving. Excellent
Well,
point. I don't know.
so I can tell you that um, there, if there is a drone detection system, a remote ID detection system that's out there that has a range of 6 miles or 5 miles, it is capturing and historically saving data all the time. So you don't have to have a detection. Even if you do, if you have a drone detection system in your vehicle, they're just handheld. They're little tiny little handhelds, and they got a mile radius. And those detection systems can be easily put in the vehicles and go mobile. They don't need to know the drone's up there right then and there. All they need to do is go back and look at the historical data, um, match up times and dates, and then go after that serial number or that registration number. So I don't think it's going to be hard to enforce. I don't think they're going to enforce it for every single drone. I think they're going to look for the suspicious activity, and those drone detection systems, they show historical data. Was that same drone
Yeah.
out there multiple occasions? Was it out there scouting the facility the day before? I mean, they can look at all kinds of historical data and then pick and choose who they want to, investigate.
Okay, so along those same lines, we have the Super Bowl, which is absolutely, of course, they always put a no-fly zone over the Super Bowl. It's common sense. Nobody's really arguing about this, but this was big. This is like 30 nautical miles. Isn't that
Yeah,
a little much? Do we need 30 miles?
yeah.
I don't
I don't
know.
know.
So I was kind of curious as to why that like that
It, it,
breadth.
it could be a drill, could be a test. Like how
Yeah,
let's test it out and see what we can get away with and what compliance is like. Because I know they have sensors up in San Francisco. They're all over the place, and they're in a good position to detect drones out there. Plus, you'll have every big manufacturer out there that wants a piece of this FIFA money is going to be out there offering their free detection services at this during the Super Bowl. So
right. But we know actually Aaron Pierce, good friend to drone responders, right? He actually did work the last Super Bowl. He wasn't able to talk about it very much until well after the fact, but um, we know that they have, definitely gone through the pilot stage. They are in operational
yeah.
airspace security now. So that's all right. Still on the FAA, we have FAA has now been reorganized, or it has not been reorganized. They announced the largest reorganization of the FAA ever. So, very interesting. Um, Designed to kind of make it, I guess, a little more agile and a new focus, a sort of different department in charge of eVTOLs, drones. What do we think? Necessary, just administrative, good, bad, indifferent?
I don't know. You look at Gemma can jump in here, but I know that the UK has they've done a lot to control uh, airspace, control types of drones, control, you know, jump in there, please, because I don't think it's a bad thing because times have changed so much, especially with the introduction of drones.
Yeah, I think it's a positive thing. I think hopefully aviation authorities around the world have kind of learned from, like with drones, they all had to be reactive because all of a sudden drones were really popular and they had to try and scramble to get some order to it. So them adding more innovative, futuristic almost drone use cases already, I think is a good thing. Is them learning from drones and actually being proactive this time rather than reactive. So it might seem like it's happening really early to be putting laws in place where the technology probably isn't there yet. But I think that's the better way around. So yeah, I think with the CAA, we have had an innovation part of the CAA for a while now. The challenge is the policy and the innovation team are two different departments and they can't speak to each other about the same company. That's probably the less ideal part of our situation because you speak with innovation when you're doing something really innovative that there's no kind of clear-cut route on getting exemptions. They advise you, you think you're in a good place, you submit it to the policy team, and actually have a very different view on it. So I guess with this restructure, I hope that's not replicated because that has been very tricky and they are working to kind of bridge that gap now. But maybe like a year ago and longer, it was holding back a lot of companies. So hopefully that's not repeated here. But I think it is a good thing.
I'm
I think
curious,
what I
Miriam.
hear,
Oh, go ahead.
what I hear from people working with the FAA regularly is frankly that for a very long time, we've relied on and been extremely, the industry has relied on and been extremely fortunate with a few very, very committed, wonderful individuals who had a ton of experience and a ton of knowledge and could, make things happen and get things done. And that's amazing. And we've been very, very fortunate. My hope is that the restructuring means that you don't have to be quite so dependent upon the individual. Maybe they'll have a structure that sort of makes it easier, but I don't know. Go
I'm
ahead, Tim.
curious how much the FAA workload has changed too. How many aviation jobs have gone away because of drones? How many less aircraft are in the air because drones are now doing the work that the helicopter airplanes used to do? So the amount of FAA licenses being issued to Part 107 pilots and COAs and all that stuff have greatly increased. So I think there has to be a restructure just to accommodate the workload of drone operations versus manned aviation.
I agree. I think
That
if you,
makes
like I
sense.
said, if you look at the numbers, we went from an average of about 300 public safety drone aviation programs to nearly 10,000 public safety drone programs. It
Right.
didn't
And
take,
that's in a very short period of time. So
yeah, and it didn't take away from the helicopters at this point because they're two very different operations. So one doesn't eliminate the other, but it does allow for aviation assets where they couldn't be afforded before. So yeah, it's needed. And if we look in, advanced air mobility is on the horizon. The
yeah.
drones and all the stuff that's happening in the drone space is a good lead in to what did we learn from the drones that we need to have, and which leads into the whole discussion of Part 108 being reopened for comments for conspicuity, because I think they've realized that they really need to do something different in the airspace, that they're going to have conspicuity of the manned aircraft in the sky because see and avoid doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think Gemma makes a great point. It's very good to get out in front of it, in front of the technology. Don't wait until you're scrambling to sort out the millions of aircraft that are already up there. So we'll see what happens. And we wish the best to all of our friends at the FAA, and hopefully it's not disruptive. All right.
By the way, before you go on to the next thing, did we talk about the big news of the new UAS, counter UAS office in the FAA? I mean, in the DHS, sorry, at DHS, looking at now bringing both of those angles of enabling the drones and countering the drones in one place. Boy, what a novel idea. Seems like I've been talking about this for 4 years.
Charles, you didn't let me get there. It was next on the list. Counter UAS.
Well, I can't see the list because my email's a mess and I didn't receive the document, so I can't share it with everybody here.
Okay.
So sorry.
Okay. Next on the list was counter UAS and drone incursions. And so Charles makes a great point. And of course, he has been saying that for 4 years. I myself have heard you say that for 4 years at least. And, Gemma, this was a top headline actually in the news over here was drone incidents over UK military bases doubled last year. So across Europe, not of course, this year we have had starting in Denmark, but Denmark, Germany, airports closed down, reports over military bases. Here in the US, we have had a flood of funding towards counter UAS technologies. We are reorganizing the FAA to introduce the counter UAS. Counter UAS has been a huge topic in the last 12 months, and certainly before that, but it's really heated up. And now I'm seeing the dollars go. So we have a ton of capital pouring into counter UAS technologies, a lot of contracts going to counter UAS technologies, competitions, evaluations, you name it. But I kind of think we should discuss where really are we realistically in this process? Like, where is the tech? It's a layered approach. Do people understand that yet? Or are we still at the part where somebody's sort of waiting for one product to kind of say, okay, I see that everything, I identify the good and the bad, and I can take down the bad ones. Where are we with authorities? There was a letter to congressional leaders written by the who's the FOP? It's the something of police
Or
chief.
please.
Yeah, so
The
they
fraternity order.
fraternal order of police
Fraternal
wrote a
order.
letter to congressional leaders asking for them to put police authority for counter UAS into the NDAA. And, here we've been talking about that for a long time too, because when the individual citizen has a problem with a drone, they're going to call the police. That's what you do. You have a problem, you call the police, and the police need to be able to have the tools to deal with it. So I'm interested to hear what you guys think about sort of where we are in that process. Are we really early on here still where the technology and the legislation and the authorities have a ways to go, or are we over here?
Well, being one who is on the U.S. host cities working group with DHS New Steel, and I'm on the trilateral committee for all three countries. The answer to your question is yes, we are still in the infancy and people are still trying to figure it out and they still don't know what they should be spending money on, because when you tell me a multi-layered approach, I don't know exactly what that means, except that it means I need to have multiple types of sensors. So I need to have optical and RF and radar and acoustic and whatever else it is. But now, if I have 15 of those and each 4 of those are different and they all start going off, what does that mean? So then it's into taking all that into an integration system that tells me in a meaningful way what it is. So if I get an alert that says there's something over here, well, is it a bird or is it a drone? So then I need to be able to switch over from my other signaling, whatever it might be, to optical to take a look at it to see is it a bird or anyway, you don't have a lot of time to react. So the big order of the day is everybody's asking for guidance. And for the first time, New Steel, the lab up in New York City, we're working with them as far as the webinars and I mean the working group to actually bring this stuff together to help the technical people, help the operational people. So there is some conversations now that's happening within DHS to really get into the technical side and give some advice to those people, because as a public safety provider, I wouldn't have a clue what to buy.
Mm-hmm. Gemma, what do you think? Are you seeing the same thing over in the UK? Is that kind of where everybody is?
I guess like the most sophisticated systems in the UK are really at our major airports, learned through experience of the impact of what happens when we don't have that stuff there. In Gatwick,
Mm-hmm.
famously closed over Christmas. Um, But in terms of policing, the National Police Chiefs Council have a counter-drone program that I think is doing well. Like they're using DJI aeroscopes, so it's only DJI drones that they're detecting, but so it doesn't catch all, but it catches most. And a lot of the people that are using drones irresponsibly are hobbyists, and so more likely to be using DJI. Uh, Obviously, a lot of professionals do as well, but it catches a lot of things. And we've often almost played hide and seek with the police because we have good relationships with them and we're helping them test, and they're seeing us fly all the time because a lot of their test sites for that equipment is near one of our locations. So it is impressive. It has a long way to go. They don't have it everywhere they need. They're just testing in these hotspots. So I think we're behind where we need to be in order to have kind of a resilient solution where it's needed. I think some of the solutions that I've seen out there are okay with detection, not so good at identification. So it's like, oh, there's something, but you don't know where, you don't know what. And so it's kind of a lot of noise if you don't know the identification layer. So yeah, as Charles said, without that integration piece to make sense of the detections it's making, you can't really make usable decisions from it. So yeah, I think it's ramping up, and you've seen a lot of progress in this space in probably the last 1 to 2 years. But it's still probably not where it's needed. But it's an exciting space.
It is. All right. Somebody asks, does anyone have any info on the FBI's National Counter-UAS Training Center? Anybody know about that?
I know is the FBI is in charge of all the counter-UAS training for mitigation. Right now, the priorities are focused on the host cities, the America 250 venues, and the Olympics. I know that there are still some rules that are coming out as far as engagement. I think that DHS has to provide some guidance. They're working on that now. But right now, the FBI is the single and only place that has the training in Huntsville, Alabama. And that's as much as I can tell about it now. I think that they understand that unless they do something different, scalability is going to be difficult to really make a meaningful training for people to be able to mitigate across the United States.
All right. Okay, so moving on from current events, unless Tim, Gemma, you have anything else you want to say about this right now?
Oh,
No?
good.
Okay, so Gemma, when I was doing the research pre-show, of course, I have known you for many years, tremendous respect, and been very fortunate to hear you speak at a lot of different events. And over time, your company has really evolved from where it started as Skybound Rescuer. And when did you start? How many years ago was that?
In 2016. Well, that's when I started the company, but I guess it started as my university dissertation 2014. So yeah.
Same time I started in the drone, same time DRONELIFE started. So but now in December you guys rebranded now as Skybound Tech. So tell us what you're doing now.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time coming for us, probably the worst kept secret. Because I think I even presented on some of it at Charles's last event. So clearly I was too eager, too keen to share with the world, but we've been busy building our own proprietary technology. So as you mentioned, like Skybound Rescuer came from my research into how to use drones for search and rescue. Something that I kept coming back to in that research was the thing that impacted performance the most was not necessarily the technology, but it was quite often the human in the loop, because there's so many complex decisions to think through when every second matters. So it's where the kind of idea of automation for a lot of this came from for me. And we were building the technology. We've got in-house software, data, AI, simulation robotics departments now, which is crazy. But we're building that in-house in order to transform like drone surveillance to make it faster, to make it intelligence driven, and to make it persistent. So we're integrating with third-party docking stations and drones, and building our drone stations where they're most needed so that they are ready to respond in seconds, but they can also be persistent. So there's use cases where we can monitor the critical national infrastructure that keeps our societies running, like railways, highways, power stations, and be doing daily inspections of those because we are stationed there and fly a lot, whilst also being ready to respond for emergencies. And that's what we've been building. And it's really exciting. We've got stations in some major cities, in Cardiff, in London, in Glasgow, in Southampton, major cities to the UK. But it's basically that's major cities in England, Wales, and Scotland. So it's quite big coverage. We're doing that over land, but also doing it at sea. So our main investor is the Ocean Infinity Group, which is a multi-billion-pound group that specialize in marine robotics. They've got the largest fleet in the world of uncrewed and lean crewed vessels and subsurface vessels. We share the control room with them, which is so cool, because I'll be like looking over at my team, they're flying a drone somewhere in the world, and I look over at the other bridge station and they are overseeing a ship that is in Australia or somewhere like that, all in the same room. It's so cool. But we are putting our drone stations on all of their ships as well. So it's a very exciting and busy time. We're growing fast. We started last year, 7 people, ended with 26. I'm already up to 35 people now. So very surreal, but exciting.
Wow, that is very exciting. I don't know. I have a lot of questions. Tim, you're muted. I can see Tim is asking a question, but he's muted.
Sorry about that. My daughter came out and she was being loud, so I had to mute. So just to understand what you guys are doing and clarify, but you're providing drone service for companies that may not have drone programs. You're providing them with their security or their inspections, that kind of stuff. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah, it's still mostly to public sector. So one of our bigger clients looks after and owns all of the UK railway.
Okay.
So we're putting all of our stations in hotspots of risk for them, for trespassers, crime on the tracks, suicide prevention, missing people, but also to do the daily inspections. So that's one of our key customers. So yeah, we're building that network. It's dedicated to that customer, but we've also got a DFR program where a lot of these customers have a DFR requirement as well, in terms of they have the jurisdiction over railway. But obviously it can respond further than the railway. So any emergency service that operates around these stations, if the customer has opted into the DFR program, then that emergency service can request us for immediate risk to life, free of charge, and we'll respond. So yeah, we're building this network for customers that can also expand the capability of emergency services.
So your team, if they're flying the railway, for example, they have a daily routine of patrols and inspections that they do, but then they can also be called for anything in progress that's needed. Is that correct?
Yep, exactly
cool.
that. Yeah.
So this is truly sort of designed to potentially be just shared infrastructure. This could be shared city infrastructure, or regional, or however it worked, right? So instead of every single agency having their own, it's a
and I think that someday, definitely, I think unless the agencies that we're working with already have that kind of stakeholder arrangement, and some do in certain locations. The railway customer has a relationship with British Transport Police, for example. So, of course, two agencies to one, to each of the stations. I did originally want to put this infrastructure out there for it to be shared to different customers, so it's not dedicated to one. However, that proved very difficult because finding a location that gave an equal service to multiple customers was difficult. Like finding a hotspot that was like a hotspot of risk and demand for multiple in equal measure that would then offer a similar response time performance for them. It was very difficult. So we kind of pivoted on that and focused on these customers that want them on their sites, but also they're in hotspots of risk because they're in the city centre of London, for example, that the emergency services can also benefit, even though day to day, unless they make a request for risk to life, it is dedicated to one customer. But the end goal would be shared infrastructure because then it's even more cost effective for all of these customers.
Right.
Now
Absolutely.
your software and your DFR software is all proprietary. Is that what you recently came out with?
Yeah. Yeah. So we've built all of our own software. It's fully end to end from how a customer requests the use of the drone to it then builds its mission plan based on that, the video streaming, the post-flight analytics. So all of this was obviously built from that search and rescue research. So everything is about being very quick, simple to use. You don't need an engineering degree to use it. You don't need a pilot qualification to use it. It's all about speed to make it as quick and slick as possible. People in control rooms have often never seen a drone before. So asking them to fill out a request form, dropping waypoints as where you want the drone to go is not practical. So a lot of that, our intelligence calculates it. But we've also got our own AI and simulation capability in-house as well. So we're building a lot of proprietary AI capabilities on top. For example, we're building a large language model to request the drone so that eventually you'll be able to talk to something like ChatGPT and it just creates the flight path for you.
Wow.
So yeah, it's awesome. And the simulation stuff is really cool as well. We do LiDAR flights of our locations so that we've got very detailed information of that site. We put it into the simulator and we're simulating all kinds of scenarios so that we're ready for the first time it happens. So for the railway one, we were simulating a train on fire so that we don't have to wait until that happens to be able to detect and know what to do. And yeah, all sorts of stuff with venues as well. We're doing a lot of in these city centres, responding to large venues for football events or soccer, I should say. And we're before one of those major events, we're simulating it all so that we've got all of that synthetic data to train the models to be ready to detect, identify, and track everything we need to. So yeah, it's really exciting.
Can you build in, or is it into your software models where you can pre-plan big events where you can, you know, maybe scan or evaluate the area for risks and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so that's kind of some of the work that we're doing in the simulator. So as I said, like our baseline is from a LiDAR flight, and that's the start of the simulator when we've built a new location. And then every time the drone is flying, that imagery, that data is kind of informing that simulator to make sure it's almost like a digital twin. Digital twin is more real time. I know that term is thrown about very easily, but it's not quite digital twin level. But it is informing that simulation to make it more accurate. But it can also, by doing that, do change detection. So it's noticing behavior trends or detections of maybe there's suddenly banners up, and it's detecting all these kind of changes either in people's behavior or in the landscape.
That's incredible. That's really good. I mean, just the thought for a law enforcement's perspective, you've got a big event, the days leading up to it, you scan the area, and then the day of the event, you scan it again, and you can detect anomalies, changes, that kind of stuff in the area. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so some of the other stats. So we're obviously creating a huge data lake. We're flying all the time in all of these locations. In order, instead of storing all of this footage where there might be minutes, hours where there's literally no movement in it, it's creating a transcript of what's happening in each second of a video to then work out what's the usable bit. So where there's vehicles or people moving, and it kind of removes the rest. So that means we've then got a more efficient data lake, and it's created a text version of it. That means that you can search that data lake really quickly rather than searching videos. So you could then put in, show me trends of this black vehicle in this location between this time, and it generates that timeline. And you're not having to request us to fly that, because we were flying to do line inspection or power lines or something. It is picking it up as we're flying, so that you can repurpose that intelligence for other things.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's interesting. The UK is, in a lot of ways, they're different than what we have going in the United States. One example is a lot of public safety in the UK, they lease their drones. They don't buy them. They don't have drone programs per se by buying a bunch of drones that they have to replace in a few years. They're just leasing them. And then when the drone breaks or they need a new model comes out, they just turn in and get a new one. So that's something I think is significant in the UK. And then kind of what you're doing, you don't see that in the US, where you have a company like yours that is providing a comprehensive service to mainly public entities. Around here, utility companies have their own drone programs, and law enforcement, fire, everyone has their own program. So there's really no room for, a third party to provide it. So when you're ready to open your Southern California office, let me know.
It doesn't take much persuasion to go to California. Let's go.
I know. I'm complaining about the weather, and he's telling me, yeah, it's been sunny and 80 for like weeks now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And we here in Virginia have snowcrete.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you all know that you've heard Gemma tell about this amazing stuff she's doing. Just to reinforce that, Gemma was our first Public Safety Drone Leadership Award recipient for drone responders.
Yes.
A long time ago.
What I was going to ask, because
me.
we have about 5 minutes left, and Gemma, every time I've heard you speak, I've actually taken something away. Like, I don't think I will ever forget you presenting the data on how long it takes if somebody's missing to launch a helicopter to go find your missing child versus the drone response. I mean, it's just incredibly compelling, right? I mean, and so as you and yours, product have evolved over time, those stories kind of change. So I was wondering if you have something now that you think is a really compelling recent sort of thing that you are seeing that is like, yeah, they couldn't do this before, and now we are saving lives or saving property, or really, I mean, I guess any story you can tell us without having to kill us afterwards.
And you mean more than being everywhere?
Yeah, exactly. Everywhere, all at once, on the ocean, on the land, railways, ships, whatever. I'm jealous. They're saying, oh, like, yeah, last time I saw you, we were in Norway together doing blah, blah, blah. It's all glamour. It's all glamour in the drone industry.
Trust me, there's also a non-glamorous part of my life, but the hard graft and working weekends. But the travel's fun. Oh man, that's tricky of working out what stats I can say. I think I remember the presentation you're talking about. And I
Trends
think
are fine. You don't have to get to the granular, like this many minutes or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, drones have been faster than helicopters and being able to search areas faster, but they've been hugely handicapped in that you still have to drive them to a site and set them up and fly. So having them permanently housed where they're most needed is kind of unlocking that next generation of drone capability. And someday, maybe only a year's time, I'll be like, remember when we thought manual drones were really quick? It's going that next level of, beyond visual line of sight, station where they're needed, minimal human input to really make that process as quick as possible. We're now responding within seconds, whereas I think I was talking about in that presentation minutes, and I was proud of that, but now we're in the seconds game. So yeah, it's exciting.
But that was so 2025.
Exactly.
And
things
correct me
change
if I'm wrong,
fast.
but this all started with you by yourself. This was just your dissertation paper, you said, in college, and you made it reality, and here we are. I mean, that really the success story is I've always been impressed with your drive and your operation out there, because it's, it just goes to show that anybody can do something to make a difference and start a business that, matters. It's really cool stuff.
And we need to make sure that we get you really engaged with women drone responders so that we can be one of our role models and again, be one of those champions to show that women and girls have an opportunity in this space just like everybody else.
In all her spare time.
Yeah, exactly. If the participants can't tell, we're just the fan club. We're the Gemma Alcock club. Sorry, we're being embarrassing now. Okay. So you're speaking it next month at the National Public Safety Conference. Okay, do you know what you're speaking on yet? Has Charles told you? Because he never tells me until a day or two before.
What she just spoke about is what she's going to speak about.
Okay, great.
I thought I'd talk about some drones.
Yeah. It's for something different. That is great. I'm super excited about it. I'm really intrigued by this sort of evolution, which is allowing us to discover how AI, the confluence of sort of advances in AI and advances in drone technology and docking technology, connectivity are all coming together to kind of enable this new landscape of capabilities. Really, it's pretty exciting stuff. So,
Gemma, are you seeing any movement toward longer flying drones that will help what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, we're hardware agnostic, so we have integrated with a few different docking stations and drones so that we can choose the right one. Because we're reliant on having a docking station, in order for it to be fully self-sufficient in the field, it does limit us a little bit when we start looking at fixed wings, but there are a few options. In fact, we went over to California to see Starling, we're hoping to integrate with their VTOL, their fixed wing, and their docking station. So there's not as many options on the market right now where it's a fixed wing long range drone that comes with a docking station. I'm sure someday maybe we'll consider making our own when we get frustrated with there not being enough options. That's usually how we've gone about things. But right now we're trying to look for what's available on the market. So if you do know of other options, we're all ears.
Well done.
All right. Sounds good. So we are at the top of the hour. I know it's late in the UK, Gemma. Thank you so much for being with us. Look forward to seeing you next month. And thanks to all of you who joined us here. We really appreciate it. So many comments. Check out the census. I'm sure you probably know about them. Great product. They do BVLOS flights, fixed wing. But please come back next month. We will be here. Hope to see you all next month, also at the Public Safety Conference. And check us out on DroneLife TV YouTube station for this recording and those of past episodes. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you next month.
Guys.